Are you finding yourself in an organization where everyone nods along saying, yes, DevSecOps, absolutely crucial, but, well, actually doing it feels incredibly hard?
Yeah, like pushing water uphill sometimes.
Exactly. You know, it's key for delivering secure stuff faster, but the complexity,
Yeah.
it can feel overwhelming. If that sounds familiar, you're definitely in the right place for this discussion.
That's precisely what we're going to dig into. We'll be exploring something called a maturity model. Think of it as a practical tool designed to bring some real clarity to your DevSecOps journey.
A roadmap, sort of.
Kind of, yeah. It helps you figure out where you are now, realistically define where you want to go, and then crucially map out how to actually get there.
Okay, so it's about gaining control, not just feeling swamped by it all. And before we really dive in, just a quick word from our sponsor. TechDaily.ai, your source for technical information. This deep dive is sponsored by Stonefly, your trusted solution provider and advisor in enterprise storage, backup, disaster recovery, hyperconverged in VMware, Hyper-V, Proxmox Cluster, AI servers, SA365, a turnkey security appliance, and public and private cloud. Check out stonefly.com or email your project requirements to sales@stonefly.com.
Okay, so let's get to the heart of it. This maturity model we're talking about, it really hangs on three fundamental questions leaders need to tackle.
Right, the big ones.
Yeah. First, where is my organization right now, honestly? Second, where do I want us to be? What's the goal?
And the third.
And third, maybe the most practical one, how do we actually get there? What are the steps?
These aren't just like philosophical questions, are they? They're the groundwork for making any real progress.
Absolutely. And that's precisely where this idea of a maturity model comes in handy. It's more than just ticking boxes.
So what is a maturity model, essentially?
Well, one expert, Martin Fowler, put it quite nicely. He said it's a tool that helps people assess the current effectiveness of a person or group and supports figuring out what capabilities they need to acquire next in order to improve their performance.
Okay, so assessment and figuring out the next steps. Makes sense. It gives you structure.
Exactly. It provides a structured way to look at something complex, like DevSecOps, and plan how to get better at it.
So this specific model we're discussing, where did it come from? It's not just theory, right?
Oh, definitely not. It's really born from real-world experience. It comes from observations, working with tons of different companies over, well, more than a decade, helping them through DevOps and then DevSecOps transformations.
Ah, so it's based on what actually works or doesn't work in practice?
Precisely. It's sort of distilled wisdom, taking those common patterns, the successful paths we saw, and putting them into a framework others can use.
Okay, that gives it real weight. Now let's clear something up. DevOps versus DevSecOps. People sometimes use them interchangeably. Is DevSecOps just the new name for DevOps?
That's a really important point to clarify. No, it's not a replacement. Think of DevSecOps as the natural and necessary evolution of DevOps.
Evolution how?
Well, DevOps did a great job breaking down walls between Dev and Ops, speeding things up, right?
Right, faster releases, more collaboration.
But that speed, it kind of shone a spotlight on security gaps. Sometimes security got left behind, or it was this separate teams problem, creating bottlenecks later on.
Which is risky, especially now.
Hugely risky, with cyber threats getting more sophisticated and businesses relying so heavily on digital stuff, you just can't afford to treat security as an add-on. DevSecOps tackles that head-on.
How so?
By integrating security, the tools, the practices, the mindset throughout the entire lifecycle, from the very first planning stages through development, testing, deployment, and into operations.
So security isn't the gate you pass through at the end, it's part of the road itself.
Exactly. Baked in, not bolted on. The goal is still speed and quality, but with security and reliability built right in as core parts of the process. It's about shared responsibility.
Okay, that clarifies the why. So let's get into the what's of this model. You mentioned stages of maturity. 4 of them.
That's right. The model maps out 4 main stages: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and expert. It's a progression, a journey.
So stage 1, beginner. What's that look like?
Beginner is really about laying the groundwork. It's that initial shift, focusing on culture, getting teams to actually share information, collaborate across disciplines, dev, ops, security, everyone, and importantly, having a shared desire to improve.
Culture first. Makes sense. What's next? Intermediate.
Yep, intermediate. Organizations here are usually releasing software pretty consistently. That's a big step. but they might still hit bottlenecks, maybe some performance issues, or friction between teams still lingers.
Then security?
Security is starting to shift left, being considered earlier, but often a fair bit of security work still happens late in the game, which can cause delays or compromises.
Okay, progress, but maybe still a bit clunky. Then we get to advanced.
Right. Advanced is where you see real efficiency and productivity gains. These orgs are shipping high-quality, secure software regularly onto reliable platforms. The key difference is security checks are truly embedded throughout the whole process.
Not just bolted on anymore.
Exactly. Security becomes an enabler, not a blocker. It's seamless. That's the goal.
Sounds much smoother. And the top level. Expert.
Expert is the cutting edge. These places might be doing multiple releases per day. Securely.
Wow. Multiple times a day.
Yeah. Security is just so deeply woven into everything they do, it's not even seen as a separate thing anymore. And automation. Extremely high levels across the board. Dev, ops, security, everything.
That's impressive. Now, you stressed something earlier. No skipping levels. You can't just leapfrog from beginner to advanced.
No, absolutely not. It's incremental. Each stage builds on the last. Trying to skip ahead usually means you miss building some crucial foundations, and it often backfires. It's a journey, step by step.
Got it. So these stages give the overall level, but the model also looks at specific areas, right? The 6 competencies.
Exactly. It breaks down maturity across 6 key areas. The first, and honestly maybe the most critical, is people and culture.
We talked about culture being foundational.
It really is. This looks at your org structure, how teams communicate, the company values, incentives, leadership style, even team health and burnout. Get this wrong, and the best tools won't save you.
True. What are the others? They seem to follow the life cycle.
They do. Next is plan and develop. This is about how you prioritize work, handle planned versus unplanned tasks, manage technical debt, and crucially, how you assess risk and validate code really early on. Thinking security from the start.
Makes sense. Build security into the plan.
Then build and test. This covers your testing processes, how much is automated, QA's role, code scanning for vulnerabilities, making sure builds are validated and signed properly.
Keeping the pipeline clean.
Right. After that, release and deploy. How do you get code out there? What are your deployment strategies? How often do you release? How much is automated? What happens if a deployment goes wrong?
Getting it out the door safely and quickly.
Then comes operate. This is about infrastructure as code, planning capacity, scaling systems, reliability, things like chaos testing patching, disaster recovery, keeping the lights on securely.
The day-to-day running.
And finally, observe and respond. Are you defining and tracking service-level objectives, SLOs? Are you scanning for vulnerabilities constantly? Monitoring security events, watching the user experience? How do you handle incidents? Do you learn from them through postmortems?
Closing the loop and learning. Wow, okay, that's comprehensive. It covers pretty much everything.
It aims to, yeah. People, process, technology across the whole life cycle.
Now, to make this really concrete, could you give us examples of what beginner looks like in each of these 6 areas? Paint a picture.
Sure. Let's take people and culture at the beginner level. You'd probably see teams working in silos. Dev doesn't talk to ops. Security is somewhere else entirely. Lots of friction. Maybe onboarding new folks is messy and burnout is high, but nobody talks about it.
Yeah, I can picture that. Sounds stressful.
Mm.
What about plan and develop for a beginner?
Typically, risk and security just aren't part of the conversation when features are being planned. Technical debt is probably piling up with no real plan to tackle it. Engineers end up spending loads of time fixing bugs, fighting fires, instead of building new things. Early code validation. Probably not happening.
Okay. And build and test.
Mostly manual testing, probably done by a separate QA team, often right at the end before a release. Automated security scanning in the pipeline, unlikely. Build signing or validation, probably minimal.
So lots of manual handoffs and late-stage checks. Release and deploy.
Again, very manual. Maybe people are literally copying files between servers. Releases are probably big bang, infrequent events, maybe quarterly, if that. If something goes wrong during deployment, it's a scramble to figure out why and fix it. No automated security gates.
Sounds painful.
Yep.
And keeping things running in a Maverick.
Infrastructure is likely set up manually, clicking through consoles. Capacity planning is a slow, maybe yearly process. Scaling up or down, manual effort, maybe everything's running in one data center, no real DR plan. Patching is probably reactive when something breaks.
Risky. Lastly, observe and respond at the beginner level.
You likely won't find clear SLOs defined. Vulnerability scanning, probably not happening regularly, if at all. Security monitoring might be basic or non-existent. Different teams have their own separate monitoring tools, so no big picture view. When incidents happen, it takes a long time to notice and fix them. And learning from incidents, postmortems are probably rare or ineffective.
Okay, that really clarifies the starting point for many. So how does this whole model help answer those three big questions we started with? Where are we? Where do we want to be? How do we get there?
Right. So for where are we now, the model usually comes with some kind of self-assessment, maybe a questionnaire. This one uses about 36 questions, takes maybe 10 minutes. It gives you a rough snapshot of your maturity across those 6 competencies.
A starting point.
Exactly. You can even plot it on a chart like a radar or spider chart to visually see your strengths and, more importantly, your weaknesses.
Okay, that gives you the baseline. Then where do we want to be? How does the model help there?
Well, you look at the descriptions for the advanced and expert stages. Those represent best in class, right?
Yeah.
Now, maybe not everyone needs to be expert in everything. It depends on your business, your industry.
True, context matters.
But those descriptions give you a target to aim for. The model helps you set realistic goals. Maybe the aim is to move up one level overall in, say, 12 or 18 months. It's usually a multi-year plan. And you have to keep reassessing because DevSecOps itself keeps evolving.
Setting realistic targets, continuous improvement. Got it. And the big one, how do we get there? The roadmap.
This is where the detailed descriptions within the model really shine. It suggests focusing on incremental steps, one cell at a time in the maturity grid. You generally want to focus on your lowest maturity areas first.
Build the foundation.
Exactly, because all these competencies are linked, strengthening a weak area often lifts others too. The model shows you what specific capabilities define the next level in each area, so it tells you what to work on. And it really helps to get team members involved, maybe assign owners for improving specific competencies.
So targeted steps, fix the foundations, get everyone involved. Makes sense. Now let's talk value. Why should a business invest all this effort? What's the payoff?
Great question. There are really 4 main business drivers. First, faster delivery and time to market. Integrating security early, streamlining things. It means you can release features faster, iterate quicker. That's huge for staying competitive and for revenue.
Speed is money, basically. What's number 2?
Improve security posture and lower risk. Baking security in first form means fewer vulnerabilities making it out the door. Better collaboration between teams builds trust and catches issues earlier. Less risk, more secure products.
Can't argue with that. Third.
Reduced costs, both operational and development. Finding and fixing issues early is way cheaper than fixing them in production. Faster incident resolution also saves money and reduces disruption. Streamlining processes cuts waste.
Efficiency savings. And the 4th driver.
Better customer experiences. Delivering high-quality, secure software more frequently keeps customers happy. Plus, better observability means you can spot and fix customer-facing issues faster, improving satisfaction and loyalty.
Okay, so it hits speed, security, cost, and customer sat. Pretty compelling. How do you actually measure this value, though? What metrics should companies track?
Good point. You need metrics tied to those value drivers. For productivity, track things like release frequency, lead time for changes. For security, look at vulnerability detection rates in dev test, mean time to detect, mean time to resolve security incidents.
Quantifying the risk reduction.
Exactly. For costs, maybe track QA effort, developer wait times, perhaps even the financial impact of outages or breaches if you can. And for customer impact, monitor satisfaction scores like NPS, churn rates, maybe even revenue from new features or customer growth.
So tracking these shows the progress, improves the value.
Absolutely. You need those metrics to demonstrate the ROI of your DevSecOps efforts and justify continued investment. The model gives you the path, the metrics show you how far you've come.
It connects the improvement activities to tangible business outcomes. Very powerful.
It really is. It shifts DevSecOps from being just a technical initiative to a core business strategy.
Okay, fantastic. Let's try and wrap up the key takeaways then. We've really dug into this DevSecOps maturity model.
Yeah, looking at those 4 stages, beginner through to expert.
Right, and the 6 core competencies that cover everything from people and culture right through to observing and responding.
And how it acts as a practical framework to answer those really vital questions. Where are we? Where are we going? And how do we chart the course?
Emphasizing that it's about incremental steps, building solid foundations first, not trying to jump ahead.
Exactly. Incremental progress is key.
So hopefully, listening to this gives you a clear idea of how a structured approach, like this maturity model, can really guide your organization's DevSecOps journey.
It's about providing that clarity and direction.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. Just take a moment and think honestly, Where does your organization sit on this curve right now? Are you mostly beginner? Somewhere in intermediate? And maybe what's the one biggest pain point you have that getting better at DevSecOps could help solve?
Yeah, identifying that first tangible step can make all the difference. It really starts with asking those three questions.
Indeed it does. A great place to start the thinking.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive.
TechDaily.ai, your source for technical information. This podcast is sponsored by Stonefly, your trusted solution provider and advisor in enterprise storage, backup, disaster recovery, hyper-converged in VMware, Hyper-V, Proxmox cluster, AI servers, SA365, a turnkey security appliance, and public and private cloud. Check out stonefly.com or email your project requirements to sales@stonefly.com.